Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another episode of our new figure showcase series, where we'll take a look at the newest 6-scale figure being added into my personal collection. And today we'll be looking at Valkyrie from Thunder Toys. And before we start, I'll apologize if my voice seems a little bit off. I do think I am coming down with a bit of a cold, unfortunately, but moving along to the figure, I'll start off by saying that this is my first experience with Thunder Toys, and I do believe that this is based on how Valkyrie appeared in Thor Ragnarok. Valkyrie did also use the suit in Avengers Endgame too, but there she had a totally different hairstyle, so I'm pretty sure, again, this is based on that final fight appearance in Ragnarok. The other thing I do want to point out is that besides the figure, Thunder Toys also released a 6-scale Pegasus that was more of a statue piece than a figure. I did end up passing on that just because it looked like a big space killer, and honestly, while I did want to add a Valkyrie into my collection, I don't think I was ready to drop that much money on a full third-party set of Valkyrie and the horse, especially for an unproven company. Figured I'd start small with just the figure, which was reasonably priced, and maybe next time I'll jump in with a little more confidence. So, Valkyrie. I thought she was a great character in Ragnarok and one of the best introductions into the MCU. And even in Thor Love and Thunder, I thought she did a great job, the rest of the issues with that movie notwithstanding. Now, for Thor Ragnarok, Hot Toys went deep into the line. They gave us 2 versions of Thor, Loki, Hela, Gladiator, Hulk. It was a good set, and they showed a Valkyrie figure that was teased at one of the conventions from her early look in the movie, the scavenger look. And then, of course, they ended up not producing her, which was a total shame because she looked great. Then this figure went up for pre-order, and frankly, I wasn't expecting to get a Valkyrie from Hot Toys at all. At that point in time, the reception too for the Thor sequel was pretty poor, so I thought Hot Toys is just going to cut their losses, and I pre-ordered her. Of course, Hot Toys ended up surprising me and actually did put up a Valkyrie for pre-order. I have her on pre-order as well. I thought the sculpt on that one looked amazing, and I liked that look from Thor Love and Thunder. But I still kept the Thunder Toys version order in because I doubt Hot Toys is ever going to produce this particular look, and I like the Valkyrie uniform. So with that out of the way, let's look at the figure, and she is fairly bare bones, as you can see from the overall package shot here. All you get are 2 spare hands for holding her sword, the sword itself, and a stand. The stand itself is pretty generic, and I have to say maybe a little bit oversized for the figure, and it's simple with no text. The good thing here, the figure doesn't really need it. She actually is fairly well balanced and does stand up nicely by herself. So let's do a quick look at the limited accessories, and we'll start with the gripping hands. They're actually really well sculpted with the light purple bands and some textured elements. Paint apps as well on the skin are really well done. They're also very small, appropriate enough since she is a shorter figure and a smaller figure overall. Next up, you get the sword itself, and look, it's fairly straightforward here. From a sculpt point of view, I think it's pretty accurate. Where it fails is with the paint apps. There's some smudging on the blade, although I do think they captured the metallic blues well, but even the sword edges don't look as nicely finished as they could be. They aren't smooth at all. A sword handle itself is really where you start picking up on some of the issues. On mine, there are some areas of the hilt that just seem to not have any paint on them at all. Also, the silver paint just doesn't have any depth to it. Just feels very plastic. And in the movie, I think the handle is actually a mix of a lighter gold and silver, so maybe it's nitpicking, but I do think it's a passable accessory. So now let's look at the figure itself, and we're going to start off with the sculpt. And the first question is, does this look like Tessa Thompson? Is it Valkyrie from the movie? I honestly don't know. I can see the likeness. I think the features are there. Maybe the biggest issue is more to do with the hair. This one I'm going to need your help on because I don't think it's 100% there. But I think it's still a fairly solid sculpt. And I'll say this about Thunder Toys. They actually did a great job with the paintwork on the face itself. The eyes look awesome, the eyebrow and eyelash details also look great, and there's even a nice texture around the eyes and on the lips. So I'll say it's way better than what I was expecting. Maybe just a touch soft. The big issue I have, and I said this before on my reviews and first thoughts videos, I'm not a fan of rooted hair. I think it could be unwieldy and it needs work to get it to look good. Here there's a lot of hair as well. I think if I could try to style it to get it a little more straighter and flatter against her head, it'll probably improve the overall appearance. So for my fellow collectors, I'm open to any styling tips that you might have at this point. Now the rest of the figure I think is pretty decent. We'll start with the positives. The undersuit I thought might be rubbery at first, but it's actually fabric. So you can move her arms around and her legs, so posability is decent. I won't say it's the best I've ever seen, but it's okay. And I don't think she's destined for a museum pose. Now the armor itself I think is decently recreated. Armor pieces all have a lot of decent detailing with nicks, dents, scratches, as well as some pitting, which I think does a great job of giving you that feel of armor that's been used. I also do think the screen printed pattern on the undersuit is a nice recreation of what we saw on screen, and I don't know that I have any major complaints there. Rest of the armor is connected to the figure with this rubber-like light purple material that's okay. On the plus side, I don't think it'll run the risk of deteriorating, but depending on the pose, it does bulge a little bit, so just need some patience to get it to look right. Her cape is also very light and it's wired, which I like. Only issue is the fabric might be just a little bit too light, and what I mean by that is if you look at the Doctor Strange cloaks, for example, there's a little weight to them that helps the material drape naturally. On this figure here, if you don't get the wires positioned correctly, the cape can look a little unnatural. But again, the overall feel I get with this is it just requires a little patience to get it to look right. But overall, I love the armor. I think they did a good job recreating it. Now the negatives. I don't know if this one was done on purpose, but there's a smudge right on the bodysuit below her neck. It honestly almost looks like someone put their finger on her and left a mark. Not a deal breaker, I'll attribute it to weathering, but it was something I noticed off the bat. Other issue on the arms, right above the elbow joint, there is some discoloration with the light purple of the bodysuit as well as the suit itself. Again, something you can attribute to wear and tear. Then at the seams along her abdomen, I think the stitch work here is a little rough and sloppy. And then with the rubber armor portions, there do appear to be some sections where there's either excess material or almost dried glue. So while the figure overall looks good, there are some signs of sloppiness. Still, this being my first experience with Thunder Toys, I have to say I'm walking away pretty satisfied. Now look, I don't think this is going to be a figure of the year at all, but it's a nice figure, and for me it fills a gap in that Thor Ragnarok line. So overall thoughts as we look at some posing, they're fairly positive. I think for the price point on this, it delivers a really solid piece. I am conflicted on the sculpt. Again, when I look at this closely, I can see the likeness there, but something's just really distracting. I am hoping that once I fix the hair, that will improve. But again, that's part of why I hate rooted hair. But besides that, I think the suit is well done, and while I do have issues with the sword, you really have to inspect this close up to notice any of those potential issues I've flagged. Pose-wise, I think she does a good job, and I've even managed to get her into a kneeling sort of parrying pose that works out kind of nicely, and I didn't feel like the suit was in danger of ripping. Joints are also double bend, which is a huge plus. If you have a suited figure, honestly, there's no reason not to get double bend elbows. Oh, and also the wrist pegs. My luck has improved lately with these as I haven't had any breaks at all. For Valkyrie, swapping out the hands was a breeze. There's no point where I felt like I was at risk of breaking the joint or having any issues, and the hands still managed to hold the pose as well. So I will give this company credit for that, since there was really no frustration there. Also, we have to talk scale. At first, I think she might have been a bit smaller and maybe undersized, but looking at her standing next to the Hot Toys Loki and Thor figures and comparing to some still shots from the movie, I think they actually handled the scale well, since it looks like she should stand just a little bit above Thor's shoulders. And looking at the three together, I have to be honest, I think she fits in well. I've heard it before regarding third party that maybe they won't fit in with Hot Toys, but I like the trio together. And like I mentioned, I think with a little patience, you can get her in decent poses. So I'm fairly happy with her, and I think I'll still be happy to have her in the collection, even when that Hot Toys Valkyrie finally drops. Now, I will keep on the lookout to see if someone makes an alternate sculpt. Ideally, someone could do one from Endgame with that different hairstyle. If someone made that one, I'd be interested in seeing if I could recreate that alternate look. The other thing I will say is FOMO wins out, and I'm starting to question if I should have ordered the Pegasus as well. I'm just curious how she would have looked on him, but you know what? That's beyond what I needed right now. In the collecting game, I do find you need to be disciplined, and I think the figure by itself is good enough for me for right now. So that was a quick look at the Valkyrie figure from Thunder Toys. Not a figure of the year contender, but a solid effort and a solid pickup. Let me know what your thoughts are, and as always, thanks for watching, and if you are enjoying the content, please consider liking, commenting, and subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.